hour, I think we will discuss a very common but very important topics. That is the hemodynamic assessment in a sick neonate. Basically, this is a very common scenario in our whatever the baby which are admitted in an ICU. We are seeing that in our round time that the many babies having our personal assessment that may vary with different our fellows. Someone is saying that baby and telling you that this baby is having some kind of hemodynamic compromise. Some another fellow may differ. So we are having so many things to support our statement. So those all are the indicators of the assessment to assess the hemodynamic status of that baby. So basically, this hemodynamic assessment cannot be a single statement based, but it should be a comprehensive. And rather than the single objective parameter that will decide the hemodynamic compromise, it should be something like tools that can give an idea about what kind of the physiological abnormality is happening for this baby. Then we can have a maximum inputs to manage their baby further. So my topic will be very much like how to decide our baby is physiologically compromised and at what level we need to intervene and which modality of management we should decide on what basis. So it is very basic thing. Our cardiovascular system, basically what it does, it supplies oxygen, nutrients and hormones to the cells for its metabolism, and it removes the carbon dioxide, waste products and all the byproducts from the cells. It also maintains the heat. There is some structural, anatomical and physiological difference of neonatal myocardium and cardiovascular system from adult system. Basically, neonatal myocardium is having a less contractile fibers. The fibrous tissue that are non-contractile is very much as compared to adult myocardium. So the neonatal myocardium is inherently having a property of systolic dysfunction. And also it has a poor diastolic reserves. So diastole, the feeling is also poor. That's why it has the inherent property of diastolic dysfunction. There is a property of ventricular interdependence. It means the feeling of one ventricle or over distension of one ventricle will compromise the feeling of other. The physiological systemic vascular resistance immediately after birth is high. So the neonatal myocardium has to face the high SVR. Also, the sympathetic innervation as well as the hypothalamic pituitary axis is poor. So the neonatal myocardium and cardiovascular system has some inherent lacunae that makes them vulnerable for the hemodynamic compromise. So if we talk about some basic difference of hemodynamics between fetus and neonate, we all know that what is the in utero fetal circulation and how it changes after birth. Basically, in utero, the fetal heart faces the good preload. The left ventricle having a good preload from maternal circulation. And the left ventricular afterload that is decided by placenta having a large vascular blade. So the vascular resistance is low. But after birth, as soon as we clamp the umbilical artery, as soon as we separate the baby from placenta, your systemic vascular resistance increases. And your preload of the ventricles is also impaired, especially true in preterm baby and those baby who has a bad lungs because the pulmonary pressures are not falling. So LV preload is low. So this is the hemodynamic problem that occurs immediately after birth. Now, the basic hemodynamic circulation, the circulatory homeostasis is maintained by the complex interaction between our autonomic nervous system, central nervous system, hormones that is released from endocrinal system, paracrine, and also the renal system as well as cardiovascular system. But few neonates are at high risk for developing hemodynamic compromise. Who are those neonates? the neonate, the extreme premature baby during the transitional phase. As I have mentioned, during transitional phase, this preterm having a left ventricular who are facing high SVR, preload is also low. So they are more prone to develop hemodynamic compromise in immediate transitional phase. Also, those neonates who are having some congenital heart disease. The neonate having some hypoplastic pulmonary parenchymal as well as problem with the vasculature, and the neonate with the parental infection and asphyxia. So we have to be vigilant. The history while dealing with this neonate is very much important to have an idea about which baby is going to crash or which baby are more vulnerable to develop hemodynamic compromise. So in a simple terminology, if I define a shock, then it is basically the delivery of oxygen at tissue level that is not sufficient to meet your cellular metabolic demand. So there is an imbalance. Then it will manifest as hemodynamic compromise or shock. So whenever the baby develops hemodynamic compromise, it gradually progresses. So there are different stages of shock. Whenever in first stage, as soon as the baby receives the least oxygen at the tissue level, our body will try to compensate those deficit of oxygen by various compensatory mechanisms. And those are the neurohormonal compensatory mechanism. At that time, there is a release of various catecholamines, steroids, and hormones. And what they do, that they will divert the blood flow from the non-vital organ like skin, muscles, intestine, liver, and kidney by doing vasoconstriction and divert the blood flow from non-vital organs to your vital organs like heart, brain, and adrenals. So your in compensated phase of shock, your perfusion of vital organ is preserved at the cost of non-vital organs. But this point is very much important. The baby's heart rate will remain normal or increase, and blood pressure is normal. So everything, you may not able to perceive that the baby is going towards the hemodynamic compromise if we are not vigilant, because the vital parameter like heart rate, blood pressure, they can be normal. With further progress of this hemodynamic compromise, with the failure of compensatory system, the myocardium fails and the vital organ also get hypoperfused. So at this moment, your cardiac output start reducing, your blood pressure start reducing, and anaerobic metabolism starts. So we can have a lactic acidosis and hypotension in this phase. So most of the time when we are taking the clinical parameter, the blood pressure as an indicator of hemodynamic compromise, then it will be too late. And in some condition, the shock progress very rapidly. Then we may not have time and we lose a baby. So further progress of this condition, the baby will have a irreversible phase of shock. At which in this phase, there is a complete cellular damage occur and death will occur. So to know the progress of the hemodynamic compromise is very much important to decide the management protocol as well as to decide the further test to check whether the baby is really hemodynamic compromised or not. If we talk about some in preterm category, this compensated phase is very much important. Why? Because the literature or few evidence, it says that the preterm's forebrain will act as a non-vital organ immediately after birth. So in a compensated phase of shock, there is a vasoconstriction occurs in this preterm forebrain and the vasodilatation occurs in other part of brain, that is the brainstem. So that will lead to ischemic injury like periventricular leukomalacia. And also during the compensatory phase, apart from vasoconstriction, there is a capillary recruitment. And this capillary recruitment along with the increase in oxygen extraction during the reperfusion state leads to intraventricular bleeding and IVH also. And further progress of this hemodynamic compromise, as in all the baby like term baby, there will be a complete failure of compensatory mechanism and the baby will end up with the end organ damage. Again, there is a brain injury. So in short, the hemodynamic compromise can lead to brain injury very easily, especially in extreme preterm baby, even in a compensatory mechanism. So we need to balance, or we need to keep on watch the hemodynamic status totally to prevent this brain injury. So what are the tools we are having for the assessment of hemodynamics? Few are the clinical indicators. There are very common like temperature, blood pressure, heart rate, capillary refilling time, saturation, and organ function in terms of urine output and sensorium level. Few laboratory indicators like blood gas analysis to detect the metabolic acidosis, lactate level, mixed venous oxygen saturations, and we are having some method or techniques to assess the organ or systemic blood flow like bedside functional echocardiography to assess the left ventricular output, right ventricular output, and blood vessels and vascular Dopplers to get an idea about cardiac output as well as vascular resistance. Some research, or nowadays many people are doing trials for the to identify the tissue oxygenation on the basis of utilizing this technique like NIRS, near infrared spectroscopy, perfusion index, and few gadgets or the machines that will detect our brain function like amplitude EEG. So these all are the tools. We will see in next few slides the importance of these techniques, what are the limitations of these indicators and techniques, and how can we utilize it maximally by applying our knowledge. So first we need to understand some physiological aspect of blood pressures, the relationship between the blood pressure and flow. The blood pressure as a number alone is very poor indicator of circulatory status. Why? Because it is a dependent factor. Blood pressure depends on cardiac output and your systemic vascular resistance. So the blood pressure can be normal if your cardiac output is reduced along with increase in the SVR. And so if you want to utilize this factor maximally, we need to know the number of the blood pressure along with the simultaneous measurement of your cardiac output to get an idea about systemic vascular resistance that is going to happen in our baby. Then our management protocol will be easy and more physiological. So by looking at just a number of blood pressure, the baby may not be in a low cardiac output state. The cardiac output or systemic flow, again, it is depend on your heart rate and stroke volume. And your stroke volume, that is the cardiac output, it depends upon preload of left ventricles, contractility of left ventricles, as well as afterload of left ventricle. So by knowing a cardiac output, we can have some idea about what kind of physiological problem our baby is dealing. For example, if the baby is having a low cardiac output and having a poor preload, then the underlying physiological problem will be like hypovolemia, PPHN, that is filling your left ventricle poorly. So our management protocol will be on the basis of improving your preload rather than using inotropes or some other medicines. Similarly, if your contractility of heart is poor and it is making your cardiac output low, then the underlying pathology can be like asphyxia, congenital heart disease, sepsis-induced myocardial dysfunction, or some cardiomyopathy. Similarly, if your systemic vascular resistance is increased and that is hampering your cardiac output, then underlying physiological abnormality will be like in transitional phase. Immediately after birth, your SVR is high and that is leading to low cardiac output. Then your treatment strategy should be like reducing afterload rather than giving bolus or something else. So in this way, we can think about what is your physiological problem, which is hampering your cardiac output and systemic flow, and our management protocol should be on the basis of those things. So rather than using a terminology of blood pressure, I will like to use a terminology of perfusion pressure. So this is the pressure below which our organ perfusion is compromised. But this is a magic number. The limitation of this is no one is knowing the exact number of perfusion pressure, that beyond this number, less than this number, your organ is compromised. Moreover, this number varies in different patients, and also it varies in the same patient at a different time. The number that is abnormal today may not be normal for tomorrow. Similarly, so the perfusion pressure is more a clinical definition, but it has some limitations. Then many researchers have decided, or they have tried to define the low blood pressure on the basis of this perfusion pressure only. They have given some idea, or they have given some evidence that below this number your baby is compromised, that's why we should treat this number. So the most common definition of hypotension or low blood pressure that we are using in our clinical practice is BAPM rule, that is British Association of Perinatal Medicine rule. If the baby's mean blood pressure is less than the baby's gestational age in weeks, then we are consider that baby with the low blood pressure. For example, if baby's gestational age is 30 and the blood pressure is 28, then we are saying that the baby is having a low blood pressure. But what is the evidence? The evidence is very poor. There is no supportive evidence for this definition, because it was defined, or it was reported by an association of some neonatologists and pediatricians by providing some consensus report while publishing the management of neonatal RDS. The thing which I have highlighted, the terminology C they have used, that is the consensus report given by this association. So this is very much commonly used, but recent evidence is also saying that this cannot be applied at all. Though it gives some idea, but it cannot be all about the hemodynamic compromise. Then again, few other author has defined the low blood pressure as the mean blood pressure less than 30. From where this number came? Basically, this number less than 30 is based on our understanding of physiological aspects of cerebral perfusion. Because below this 30 millimeter of mercury mean blood pressure, the autoregulation of cerebral perfusion is compromised. So this is a cerebral critical closing pressure, and that was given in almost around 20-30 years before by Meehl-Allen study which was done in 1987. The number of subjects was 33, preterms 26 to 30 weeks. They have concluded that the brain injury in form of severe IVH death was very much common if the mean blood pressure is less than 30 for more than 1 hour. And recent evidence, some cohort study which was published in 2019 for the premature baby 23 to 26 weeks, they have observed that this critical critical closing pressure is around 20. So it is not necessarily less than 30, it happens, but some level is there. Like if less than that number, your blood pressure is low, then it affects your cerebral perfusion and it can lead to brain injury. But what is that exact number, that is still not knowing, but definitely there is some perfusion pressure below which the brain injury occurs. So I think at this juncture, we should accept that there are many limitations in defining the low blood pressure, and we should stop searching a simple solution for a more complex issues of hemodynamic compromise. But we can have some thought process that there is some number of blood pressure like evaluation pressure, which is fixed, which can be fixed on day 1, which can give an idea about this can be used around, this number can be used for the further assessment. That is the cutoff. We should start thinking that this baby need to be monitored vigilantly. And another pressure terminology can be used as a trigger pressure, that is used for the decision making for the management of hemodynamic compromise, but it is very complex. As I have told you, as I have already mentioned, it can't be a single number of blood pressure. Rather than a single number, it is more comprehensive, more physiological based. So people have published various data to define the normal range of blood pressure that can be utilized in our day-to-day practice, like the range of normal blood pressure in first postnatal week in premature, extreme low preterm baby like less than 28 weeks. This graph shows the 3 lines in orange, blue, and green, a range of the blood pressure in less than 28 weeks in first week. The blood pressure in this range can be considered as normal. Another study, they have published percentile data of blood pressure in first week of life in extreme preterm baby, that is gestational age 23 to 25 weeks. Then again, a few studies that have published the data that is giving a range of mean blood pressure in first 3 days in a premature baby. In all the maturity. That was written by mistake. So this graph will tell the what can be the normal range of blood pressure in first 3 days in different gestational age. Also, how the blood pressure trends in first month of life, how it progressively increased, the systolic, diastolic, and mean blood pressure. So this is a chart in all the gestational age. So till now, we know that the blood pressure number as a single indicator is not going to help, but definitely it is not a useless thing. The blood pressure number or a low blood pressure or a hypotension definition can be utilized cautiously to manage our hemodynamically compromised baby, but when to use? So whenever the hypotension or low blood pressure, according to that chart, if it is lasting for more than 1 hour, then you need to think about the further management, or you need to think about the further assessment. If hypotension is associated with hypoxia, metabolic acidosis, hypocarbia, or hypercapnia, then definitely you need to think about the further assessment or further indicators to decide for the further management, because these all indicates that this baby is going to have multiple problems if we ignore this kind of scenario. So how the blood pressure can be used as a tool bedside to identify some pathophysiological problem which our baby is facing. We all know that the blood pressure as a whole, systolic blood pressure, diastolic blood pressure, and mean blood pressure. If your systolic blood pressure is low, less than 3rd centile, then it indicates that your baby is having a poor left ventricular stroke volume. So already I have mentioned that whenever the left ventricular stroke volume is low cardiac output, then it means the problem is at the level of preload or contractility or afterload. When the baby is having a diastolic blood pressure less than 3rd centile, then the problem what we are dealing is the problem with systemic vascular resistance, that is low. When it happens in a warm shock, in a vasodilatory shock, and in a PDA, and in hypovolemia. When both the systolic arterial pressure and diastolic arterial pressure is low, then it means there is a complete circulatory failure is there. The baby may progress from low systolic blood pressure to direct complete circulatory failure, or low diastolic blood pressure to complete circulatory failure, or sometimes in a very sick baby, you may found the baby with the low systolic as well as diastolic pressure. Directly we are facing the baby with the complete circulatory failure, like late stage of septic shock. Then we have to manage those baby with accordingly management protocol. So I want to I want to state that this blood pressure is invasive blood pressure. This is not non-invasive blood pressure. So the third centile, whatever they are mentioning, that is the numbers derived from invasive blood pressure. So this table will give an idea about what can be the normal systolic, mean and diastolic blood pressure third centile, and below this number you can consider that baby is having a problem. Now we will look the different kind of indicators like clinical indicators. We already discussed a lot about the blood pressure, and we know the other clinical indicators are also which are commonly used in our day-to-day clinical practice, like the temperature and other thing. So how these clinical parameters helpful, or what are the problem with this clinical parameters like CRT, mean blood pressure, the central and peripheral temperature difference, how it is correlating with systemic blood flow. So what is an evidence? So the different trials study, they have used this clinical indicator to decide whether it is associated with low blood flow or low systemic blood flow or not, especially in preterm baby less than 30 weeks. So those studies have mentioned that the CRT more than 3 seconds, mean blood pressure less than 30 are having a poor sensitivity to correlate with the low systemic blood flow. Alone, systolic blood pressure less than 40 is having a sensitivity of 76%. But when we combine these two indicators, that is the mean blood pressure less than 30 along with the CRT more than 30, it gives a reasonable idea about your low systemic blood flow. Sensitivity rise to around 78%. So you can utilize two clinical indicator together to get an idea about your systemic blood flow. But as we all know, these clinical indicators are having many confounding factors. Like tachycardia can happen with medication, with pain, with temperature difference and agitation. Blood pressure can be falsely reduced, or it is not very much accurate during the transitional circulation when we are having a cardiac shunts like PDA or PFO. It will not correlate well with the systemic blood flow. CRT, color of the baby, which are very much depend upon temperature, skin tone and anemia also. The sensorium level, urine output, that is also very much not accurate during the within 24 hours, because the renal function is not normal within 24 hours. Urine output may be low in first 24 hours. The level of consciousness also depends upon other things also like medications, CNS infections, convulsions, all these. So the clinical indicators are having many confounding factors. We cannot rely upon these indicators as a whole. Now, if we talk about the lab parameters like blood gas, metabolic acidosis, lactic acidosis, and mixed venous oxygen saturation. This lactate, when there is a lactic acidosis, it indicates that the cellular anaerobic metabolism is happening. But it can be falsely elevated in case of inborn iron of metabolism, or it may be increased because of hemolyzed lab samples, or when we are using adrenaline, it will induce a glycogenolysis and glycolysis in liver, and that will give the false elevation of lactate. So it is not a very much reliable indicator sometimes. The metabolic acidosis, it is also again indicating that it is elevating because of acidosis happening because of anaerobic metabolism. But in preterm group, especially in extreme premature baby, they are bicarb loser. The renal conservation of bicarb is poor. So those babies having a metabolic acidosis as a normal phenomenon, and you cannot say that this metabolic acidosis is because of shock or hemodynamic compromise. The mixed venous oxygen saturation, whenever it is low, it indicates that your oxygen consumption is increasing at the level of tissue, and that's why the venous saturation, central venous oxygen saturation is low. So the normal central venous oxygen saturation is more than 70, that is 70 to 75. But whenever it is low, less than 40%, it indicates that your tissue oxygenation is poor. It indicates that your peripheral tissue is consuming more oxygen because of hypoperfusion. Also, the low central venous oxygenation can occur because of necrotic tissue. So it is not exactly a shock, but because of necrotic tissue, your central mixed venous oxygen saturation is low. So it is also not a sole indicator. We cannot rely upon only that indicator. This picture or this image is showing that thing only. There is a biphasic relationship between the oxygen delivery to tissue and oxygen consumption. Whenever the baby is having oxygen compromise, baby is having a reduced oxygen delivery at the tissue level, what happened? In initial phase, your oxygen extraction, oxygen consumption, level of lactate, all things remains normal. But at one point, that is the critical level at one point, and that is your critical point beyond which your oxygen delivery, if oxygen delivery is reducing, then oxygen consumption will not increase and the lactate will going high a lot. So the lactic acidosis and low mixed venous oxygen saturation happens in the late stage of shock. So they are not a good indicator for the early detection of shock, but these are the late markers. Near infrared spectroscopy, basically this tool or this machine will uses the principle that it emits the infrared lights that detects the concentration of oxyhemoglobin and deoxyhemoglobin, and then it calculates how much oxygen is extracted at the level of tissue. So it provides a continuous indirect assessment of tissue blood flow or oxygenation. It has having a optodes just like electrodes, and that are placed at the organ site of which the oxygen extraction or tissue oxygenation we want to measure. Like the optodes can be placed at the level of brain, kidney, intestine, liver, muscles, and it will detect the tissue oxygenation around 4 centimeters below the surface. Few data are published, have been published that gives an idea about what can be the normal tissue oxygenation for neonatal group of the baby. Like what can be the normal cerebral oxygenation status immediately after birth. This can be, the mean will be the 75%. So the detail, the more research is required in this field to have an idea about the more normative data in different population of neonate, like after few days and in a term baby also. But definitely it is very much useful because it can be used bedside and it gives idea in the real time and continuous way. So our management protocol can be based on this oxygenation status. Second, another thing, that is the perfusion index. In few pulse oximeter or multipara monitor like Masimo, Philips, you may have noticed this PI indicator mark. So basically it gives an idea about your peripheral perfusion, and it is non-invasive, just like a pulse oximeter. The principle is same. The infrared rays that is absorbed by the pulsatile arterial blood, as well as it is absorbed by the non-pulsatile part of the body, that is the connective tissue, bone and venous blood. And it will give a number of PI by making a ratio of pulsatile to non-pulsatile amount of the blood at particular site. And that is expressed in percentage, like 1.1%, 0.4%, 1.5%, in that way. So people have used this indicator as a sign of poor tissue perfusion, and they have published different data that can give an idea or cutoff beyond which the baby is having a poor tissue perfusion. So this perfusion index to give, if we want to take the benefit of this in our clinical practice, for the identification of low perfusion state, this can be a cutoff. Like the PI value, if it is less than 0.7, then it can give some idea that the baby is having some kind of left-sided obstructive phenomenon or low cardiac output state. If the PI value is less than 0.4%, it correlates with the low SVC flow, and especially in preterms baby, it is associated with the IVH. So you can pick up those baby by looking at this PI number. In healthy term baby, the normal value of PI is around 1.7. It can range from 0.7 to 4.5%. But it has a limited utility in preterms baby, especially in first 72 hours. Because in first 72 hours, there is a transistor circulation, there is a shunts at the level of PFO, PDA. So the PI value is not very much accurate, and it is not very much correlating with the poor perfusion. So these are the data which is published by an author, and it gives some idea about what can be the cutoff value of PI, and we can think about to do more and more research on the basis of this to identify the more data to help so that we can use in clinically also. So there is a paradigm shift. People have used a blood pressure a lot as a marker of hemodynamic compromise, but till now we saw that it is very simple, but it is very less reliable. It is not very much correlating with your low systemic blood flow. So our approach should be a physiological base, and that is more comprehensive, and it is based on assessment of what is physiological abnormalities happening with your baby, and our management should be on the basis of that abnormality. So this image a bit complicated, but I will try to explain you. This image will show the different indicator for the hemodynamic assessment, and those indicator that is influenced by many factors, and we are having a gadgets or laboratory techniques or clinical indicators to identify the abnormality by using that indicator. Like systemic blood pressure, as we have noticed, it is influenced by systemic flow and SVR, and that is measured by invasive blood pressure. A systemic flow that can be measured by bedside echocardiography and other many techniques. Systemic oxygen delivery and systemic oxygen consumption at the tissue level, that can be detected by measuring a lactate, blood gas, measuring a hemoglobin level, measuring your mixed venous oxygen saturation with the help of NIRS. So all other technique which can give an idea about your systemic oxygen delivery and systemic oxygen consumption. Again, some clinical indicator or baby's organs functional status, how the baby's different organ is functioning. Like with the use of amplitude EEG, we can have some objective parameter that gives an idea about brain dysfunction, how the lungs are behaving, that are giving an idea about your respiratory physiology, cardiac activity, the function of kidney, liver, muscles. So all how the organ are functioning, that can be picked up by the different modality, different indicator, clinical as laboratory as well as other thing. Circulation, tissue circulation, that can be measured by CRT, temperature difference, which gives an idea about your tissue perfusion. So in a nutshell, there is not a single indicator that will say that that should not be used as a marker of hemodynamic compromise. Rather, you should combine the multiple indicator as a whole to decide our management protocol for the hemodynamic compromise baby. So the hemodynamic assessment is not just about the blood pressure, but it's a comprehensive assessment. So this will be a future. This will be the future for the hemodynamic assessment bedside. This is a screenshot of a machine that is measuring a multiple indicator, multiple parameters in a real-time manner, in a continuous manner. This machine is measuring cardiac output or stroke volume. This machine is measuring heart rate with the use of ECG. This machine is measuring blood pressure, like systolic blood pressure, diastolic blood pressure by invasive technique. This machine is giving an idea about your tissue, your SpO2, transcutaneous CO2 level. This machine is giving an idea about your oxygenation status at tissue level, like cerebral oxygenation, renal oxygenation. This plethysmograph is giving an idea about how the baby is breathing. So in a real-time manner, with the continuous data, we can have a best idea about how our baby is going hemodynamically. What is the current health of a cardiovascular system in our baby. So this is all about my short presentation. I hope you can have some idea about some basic thing and how you can apply it in your clinical practice also.
Great, Hitesh. It was very nice, very good presentation and lecture inclusive of most of the things. So I would like to have comments by, there was one chat box, sir, Dr. Rajiv Agarwal sir has mentioned something. Sir, if you can just bring up the things and discuss, sir. Rajiv sir.
Yeah, so Hitesh, very good talk. I think you very nicely covered everything. Now, have been reading and learning more and more about cord clamping, and that term